whole landscape of signing day change. Talk about that. We'll talk about the class, kind of break down the class. What were our thoughts going into it? What were our needs? How we've addressed them. We're going to bring in 3 players, their perspective on what their signing day was like. Time at Ashland and coaches as well. So a lot of guests today, a lot of information about Ashland football. So if you're an Ashland football junkie, today is for you.
And coach, obviously too, with it being a big day, I mean, you guys have got a lot of signees. We'll talk about different position groups and whatnot, but obviously too, with certain restrictions in the NCAA, we'll make sure we don't cross any barriers in that front. But first and foremost, I mean, before we dive into the excitement here soon, before we get right into it, when you talk about today's signing day, what has it been like for you so far? What has the excitement been like for you?
You know, it's kind of like Christmas. We spent almost a year on a lot of these. Make sure they become active Eagles. And so today's kind of the confirmation. In a lot of respects, though, I mean, commitments have already happened. Didn't happen today. A lot of respects, I mean, first guy in the class, Tom Chaney, happened for August. It was the first quarterback was a fit in this class. Most recently, we've got some last night. Yes, opportunity. It's been fun, and it's like opening those Christmas.
Exactly. And when you take a look at this year as well as a whole, obviously being at your second year, I mean, what has it been like for you in that realm?
You know what? Things slow down a little. First year, old adage, until you're actually in that seat, won't actually. That's true. No matter how much you. So, kind of having an idea where things fall schedule wise. No more than anything else. When I need to pick up time. That's been nice for slow down.
We'll dive more in depth onto what signing day is, some of the excitement that's come along with it, and much more into Coach Geiser's second year. Reminder not to go anywhere. We'll take a break and join you back here momentarily right here on the Great West Digital Network.
Every year, our goal is to recruit past guys on campus. So some of the guys on campus, it kind of opens their eyes when they hear that the first time. They're the ones anymore. So that's always our goal. And what we do going into every single recruiting class is who are we losing, number one, from class. And so as we went into this year's class, we looked at basically 3 areas that we need to replenish. Really good players. Wide receiver was one. Losing 3 really good players: Drew Johnson, Tyler Davis, Tony Pinard. Defensive tackle, another one. 3 seniors there: and Rainey, Christian Garish, Colin Strong. And then in the back end, in the secondary on defense, 2 corners, losing 3. So those were the areas that we needed to address above and beyond just normal replenishment.
And Coach, too, I think a big thing that we talked about prior to this year's signing day was a bit of the changes in terms of the difference that's been going on. Do you want to highlight those for maybe the audience who might be unaware?
Yeah, the landscape, and it's really just kind of a syntax logistical thing is what. Previously on signing day is the first opportunity for you to sign to play division football. We don't have an early signing date like division. That might be coming down the pike here within 5 years, but right now we do not. So first Wednesday in February is always the first opportunity to sign to play division football. And so from there, what happened was that was run through the National Eligibility Center before. And now the NCAA is basically taking that power and putting it under their roof. So the national letter of intent no longer exists. That phrase, that term no longer exists. It's in the archives. It has now been replaced by an athletic financial aid agreement. Biggest thing with that, though, is knowing this. If a player signs an athletic financial aid agreement, everybody else has to cease recruiting them. That's the biggest thing with signing. They're now off the market. Teams can touch him.
When we take a look at this year's overall process, well, I mean, did it go smoothly? Were there any bumps in the road for you guys, or has it been kind of straightforward?
It's been pretty straightforward. It's a long process. People don't probably realize it starts at the latest, the previous May. We get out in every single school in the state of Ohio that plays football, and even the 200 other schools outside our state borders, Michigan and Indiana, Kentucky, and Western. So we're touching approximately almost 1,000 schools, 900 to 1,000 schools. We compile our list for the next, start the evaluation process, start the process of building a relationship. So it's a culmination. This day is a culmination of that time of building that.
And you always talk about kind of getting that next Ashland man type deal. You want to get those good guys that are on the field that are great and successful, but also the guys off the field who are going to continue to grow the program standards. When you take a look at the people that you've brought in this year, do they contribute to that success you guys are looking for?
Absolutely. That's a primary concern for us. I mean, there's 3 questions we usually ask above and beyond the talent aspect of it. Number one, do you love football? Okay. The preparation for football is a long grind. You got to embrace that grind to have success. So, do you love football? We ask that. Number 2 is, are you a good teammate? Okay, are you selfless and realize that every decision made is about the team, not about you. And the last portion is, can I trust you? Those 3 questions right there, and that embodies a lot of what we talk about that goes into making an Ashland. I think there's a lot of players in this class that.
And when it comes down to the active players, what process do they play in terms of bringing these recruits? Do they actively meet with these guys and get them interested in the program? How does that work?
Yes, they are probably our best selling point for when our scholarship offers come to campus on an official visit. Our players will host them. We want them. We want the recruits to be exposed to our players. They're our biggest. And it actually goes twofold. They get a chance to evaluate our players, the guys they want to play with, but also it allows our players to meet future teammates, see if they fit. It's a vetting process on both ends. We think this: if we can get a player on campus and meet our players, I think we're pretty good chance.
When we talk about signing day back as a whole, I mean, obviously it being today, what does that look like for you and your staff? Are you guys constantly talking with these recruits? There are certain things you can't do. How does that all work?
You leave nothing to chance. So even to the fact of we sent out athletic aid agreements 2 days ago, and we talked in our staff meeting, follow up with them, make sure they got the papers, so everything goes smooth. Do they understand the directions? Do they know what they need to do? Do they know the timeline on signing day? Just to leave nothing to chance. Even though there's been a lot of dialogue all the way through, until they actually sign the papers, you got to keep recruiting them. Urban Meyer said, what happens when you get commits, verbal commits, just means the competition knows who the competition is.
And when you take a look at the guys that you are bringing in this year, do you guys prioritize certain guys over others or certain areas of the country over others? I mean, how does that whole process work for you?
No, we spread our net as wide as we need to. And as we talked about, Ohio is home base. And we were starting to bleed into Michigan a little bit, and Indiana and Kentucky. Okay, so that's our primary net. But we will also exhaust other opportunities. Transfer portal. We got to commit with a guy who's on campus right now, on the team right now, Jermaine Calloway from Connecticut. He was in the transfer portal. You had that situation there. Coach Ashley got great connections in Northern California, both in the JUCO realm and the high school. So the net's being spread there. We're probably going to expand to a couple different areas next year as well, expanding that net to make sure we're seeing enough scholarship players.
And as we kind of look towards the transfer side of things, become more and more apparent as of you have to have your toes in there in some capacity. What were your guys' efforts in the transfer portal like this year?
It for us, the transfer portal and put junior colleges are always going to be to solve short-term needs. So it's a price price you pay to do business nowadays. If we don't investigate every opportunity to bring in good players to Ashland, I'm doing a program. But usually we're looking to the portal and looking to those to solve those. We will always build the program at Ashland, starting first home base high school. That's the best way to build your culture, build that team chemistry, have them 4 or 5 years. But sometimes you're left in a lurch some years like this year with the defensive tackles. Our whole goal was to get a number of young guys, yes. We wanted to bring an older guy in as well to help bridge the gap. Maine has been a 2-year letterman, 2-year starter at Southern Connecticut State, so it helped us in that respect.
And when you look at this year's signing class and what the people that you've brought in, how does it fit into like that long-term vision for the
We want to get in a situation where we're kind of reloading it. That's the ultimate goal. We're not there yet. We're not there yet. Well, if you look at on the offensive side of the ball, we obviously talked about the short-term need at wide receiver. We like our young players coming back. We want to hedge our bets and have as many. But you look at the other positions. We graduated a quarterback. We're going to take a scholarship. Okay? Graduated a tailback and lost another through attrition. Tailback. Okay? We graduated nobody in the offensive line. We have our top 9 guys back, as a matter of fact. Still going to sign guys. We had 2 really good guys. The guys at the top of our. We lost a tight end to the transfer portal in attrition, so we signed 2 tight ends. We're always going to take a fullback. So replenish those areas every single year. So your host, we'll play young guys if they're good enough. You don't want to have to play young out of because that's the only.
Yeah, and how have you seen signing day kind of evolve over time as well for you? Obviously, you've been here at Ashland for quite a while now.
It's for me. It's actually slowed down. Believe it. The live stream here notwithstanding. Okay, it's kind of a situation where, as an assistant, I was calling the recruits in my area to making sure they all signed it. They haven't signed by 9 o'clock. Oh shoot, I go call, get on the phone. What's going on? And so you're a little more high strung at that point. As the head coach, I'm going to step back a little bit, kind of catch my breath, and look at the overall picture. If there is a need to be able to step in and do the need, or like today when rings came in yesterday. Well, hey, let's hand out the rings today. Make it today a great celebration of Ashland football.
For sure. And Coach, too, how do you keep these days from being stressful and more fun on that realm? Obviously, you talked about with the rings, but let's say you don't have the rings to hand out. How are you making sure the vibes, at least, if you will, in the building are high?
Well, the thing is, you alleviate a lot of stress. So you put the preparation in. You're organized. Work your plan throughout the whole year. That way, you're not rush, panicking. So that's the biggest part. So I talked earlier in your question about the things slowing down a little bit in the second year. That's a part of it. Part of it. It also helps to have a very experienced staff that's this many take pride in it. So I can put a lot on the shoulders of a Dominic Orsini portal or an AJ Nicolai to help coordinate something like this. So I don't have to worry about that. Kind of be the head coach, kind of almost gravy train.
For sure. And speaking of AJ Nicolai, we'll be talking with him up here soon. But Coach, I appreciate you sitting down with me here in this opening hour.
It's been fun. Thank you.
It's been great. We'll take a break. We'll join you all back here soon, up here on the Great Midwest Digital Network.
hectic, man. Signing day, starts right at 7 a.m. and kind of goes right through the day. So, getting everybody signs. Coach Geiser talked about it earlier. He's kind of overseeing everything, but, getting guys signed, getting all their paperwork, that's a big thing for us right now.
And for sure, he had high praise for the coaching staff on helping to make sure it's not as hectic as it could be. When you take a look at the logistical side of signing day, what's it been like so far for you?
Yeah, the big thing for me that I try and handle all of our graphics and stuff. I know I've talked about it on Coach Geiser's show before. Doing all the social media stuff, I kind of oversee it. I don't do a ton of the groundwork with it. We have a great company, HSLD, that kind of does all of our graphic stuff. So right now, it's really just kind of spent the morning making sure all the graphics are getting put out and all that stuff, making sure the papers get signed, graphics are posted after that.
For sure. And when you look at kind of the behind the scenes side of things, what challenges have you guys faced?
The biggest thing is just making sure these guys are getting their papers signed. They're signed correctly. There's some specific things that they have to do on the paperwork. So making sure that those are done correctly, and then getting all of the information for the graphics posted. That's the biggest thing.
And how do you exactly get all this information? So much of it.
Yep.
I mean, height, weight,
Oh, yeah.
stats in school and
Yep.
whatnot. I mean, how does that work?
Well, it goes over, a multiple month long recruiting process. Some of these guys we've been recruiting as long as, back years ago, a couple years ago in their high school career. So, over that time, just getting, all of that information and keeping it organized, that's the biggest thing, making sure it's possible. So just keeping a sheet with all that stuff and kind of working off of that is.
One of the toughest things too that we talked about a little bit with Coach Geiser earlier, but it's with the compliance side of things and making sure you guys aren't breaking any rules when it comes to graphics. I mean, we've seen football programs unfortunately somehow actually break these different rules. How do you make sure that with so many things going on, everything's in the line?
We have a very specific kind of chain of command that we're following. Coach Orsini, the recruiting coordinator, does a great job. Christine Thompson, our administrative secretary, does a fantastic job as well. Just making sure that all of that stuff, the ducks are in a row, and they're able to kind of go down that chain of command. And then once it gets all the way down to me, typically I'm not responsible for a ton of that, but just making sure that we follow that chain of command and then get everything.
And we've talked about too just the planning side of things and logistically making sure things are sound. But obviously, like we've talked about, there can be bumps in the road. But when it comes to the day itself, being here on signing day on this Wednesday, what is your role, Ben? What time did you wake up here today and get into the office to make sure things are all good?
Yep, yeah. I remember my very first signing day as a graduate assistant. I was at the office at 6 a.m. getting coffee, poured and ready to go for the full-time coaches. Today I got here right around 7:15. Coach Orsini was here way before that, making sure everything was ready to go. This is his big day. Just getting here as early as possible and making sure I'm available to help any way that's possible. Once those papers start getting signed and turned in, we're able to start pushing out some signing days.
And I know we've talked about, too, just the importance of signing day as a whole for the families and friends involved for these players. I mean, what do you think makes it so important? How do you guys as a coaching staff try to make it?
Absolutely. Those signing day graphics that get posted, videos that we do, some schools just, make different graphic still pictures and stuff. I think we did a really good job, West Seafang, doing our graphics, did a great job with kind of the motion picture stuff. But it's a big day for these guys. Like, they go through their whole life, getting ready to play college football, right? Getting through that recruiting process. And we want to welcome them to the family, the best way we possibly can, by, giving them a quality graphic, send to the family, show all their friends. That's our biggest thing.
For sure. I talked to Coach Geiser earlier about how signing days kind of evolved over time. When you look at it from your perspective, obviously you started as a GA and you were able to find your way to where you are now. What has it been like for you in terms of that evolution?
Yeah, each year is trying to be better than you were last year. That's kind of the big thing is, it's always fun to see some of our current players in the hallways and they're like, man, where was this when I was recruited? Right. And that's kind of the goal we're trying to get to. Hey, we have this is this year, and then next year we're better than we were last year. So, 2 or 3 years from now, like we got seniors on the program, talking at us, hey, where was this when I was? That's kind of how it's evolved.
Well, I appreciate you sitting down with me here today. When we return, we'll take a break. We'll join you back here soon. We've got plenty more segments coming your way. Reminder, you don't want to miss out on this Ashland University football signing day live 2025 edition. We'll catch you back here in just a few moments right here on the Great Midwest Full Network. Welcome back to the Ashland University Football Signing Day Live, the 2025 edition. I'm Cade back alongside AJ Nikolai. AJ, once again, I appreciate you taking time out of your day. Of course. So now as we look towards the graphical side of things and the social media aspect, which we know more than ever right now is a primary focus for kids, especially at that high school level. First and foremost, how have you guys tried to skew your energy in that direction so those students feel fulfilled?
Yeah, kind of talking about last segment with the organization and the planning of all that stuff. It really starts that first time they come on campus for the visit, where they get their pictures taken, all the way to today, where now we've got the graphics developed and all that stuff. So kind of seeing that process and making sure it's as organized as possible. So we can put a good product out there for these guys. That's the biggest thing. That's the most.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at like the rewarding side of things for these kids, I mean, for you, I mean, putting in so much time to it, what makes it worth it?
Yeah, I mean, just seeing guys repost it on their stories, posting it on their own social medias, shouting out, the program, hopefully watching the live stream right now. It's a really cool feeling because we spend a lot of time. I know all of our guys that are working on graphics spend a lot of time doing that stuff and putting it together so that it's as good as it possibly can be. So when we see all these guys get excited and they're posting it and their parents are commenting on all the posts, it's really cool to see. It's
And you talked about using that HSLD company for the graphics this year. What was your kind of your creative energy towards them? I mean, have you given them the chance to kind of run with it, or have you kind of given them some specifics?
Hustle. They're a local company. They're most of them are Ashland alums that work for them. So when they came to us, kind of wanting to take that over for us, it solves a problem for us. Typically, we're using students or outside help. That each year it might be different. So having that consistency throughout the season, throughout the school year, and the year as a whole is really nice. This is the first year, so we've had some bumps in the road, but we're kind of figuring that stuff out, and it's been really cool because now I think it's going to be very, very streamlined and have that same consistency of the product, so that you guys can see it all the time.
Yeah, and so far it has been. I mean, obviously too, it's a cool little video transition too. Unlike you said, like with you normally see stills, but having that video aspect definitely separates yourselves. And what do you think the importance is in that side of things as well? Obviously, separating yourself from other schools.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, one of the, obviously the graphics, but then you get on our website and Dusty does a great job of putting all of the info written up, all that. It's very detailed. It's very organized. And does a great job of pushing out as many kids as possible that are joining us and having them get their spotlight.
And do you think that kind of plays a big role in engaging them and keeping them excited, but partially as well, when you look at after signing day, how do you keep them still engaged?
Yeah, I mean, after signing day, it kind of the rest of the year kind of rolls, right into itself. We get into still in winter workouts. You get into spring ball, right? There's all kinds of content that's put out throughout spring ball, getting the guys back on the field playing ball. So it's really cool. There's a lot of different content opportunities. So just keeping those guys involved, and we obviously want as many of our guys to come, check out practice, all that good stuff. So it's really cool.
Well, AJ, I appreciate you sitting down with me. When we return, we'll take a break and we'll have the player side of things now to get some more of those current athletes onto the screen and talking to you all and making sure that you stay in the know with all Ashland University football. Reminder not to go anywhere, right here on the Ashland University Football Signing Day Live 2025, right here on the Great Midwest Digital Network.
My name is Alina Williams. I'm a grad student here and I'm on the track and field team. Black History Month is super important to me because it gives me a chance to learn about, recognize, and celebrate the accomplishments of those that came before me. And being someone who's ran track all their life, I have had the opportunity to look up to so many different women who have graced the world of track and field. Starting with Florence Griffith Joyner, who has 2 world records, to Allison Felix, who is the most decorated athlete in track and field history, to Sydney McLaughlin-Lambroni, who also has a world record, and to Sha'Carri Richardson, who placed at the Olympic Games. Having all of these women to look up to gives me hope and inspiration that maybe one day I can be an Olympic athlete, or one day I can have a world record of my own. So having that inspiration is super important to me in my career in track and field.
Welcome back to the Ashland University Football Signing Day Live 2025 edition. I'm Cade Cracas, now joined alongside Ethan Enders. Ethan, thanks so much for joining me.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Of course, it's great to get you on here. As an offensive lineman, when you take a look at this year's recruiting class, I mean, how's it looking on the offensive side?
Yeah, it's looking great. I believe we've signed two of our top three, or multiple guys on the top part of our board, which is always exciting to add some depth to our room. Like Coach had said earlier, we didn't really graduate anybody from our room. We're turning a lot of guys, but it's always great to add some more new faces.
Before we dive into today's signing day, what was your signing day like?
Yeah, it was awesome. Still affected by COVID, so some restrictions with that. Didn't get to have as many friends and family there as what I would have liked, but it was a great day to finally take a sigh of relief, know where my home was for the next 4 or 5 years, get to share that moment with my friends and family.
And a big thing, too, I'm curious on when it comes to that signing day, did you take a look at who you'd be playing with? Were you like actively looking at some of the graphics and posts like, hey, I know that guy, or I competed against him, or I'm going to play with him?
Yeah, absolutely. Like Coach has said, we recruit so much of Ohio that there's multiple guys that I came in with that I played against. There also came in with a guy that played at my high school who's ahead of me. But you get to look through the graphics and go, hey, I know where that guy's
Sweet.
from. I got to play against him, and I know where that guy was from. So it's a cool way to go from foes to friends.
Exactly. When you take a look at these new recruits now coming back to present day, I mean, when you look at what they're going to be able to offer for the team, what is going to be kind of your role as a guidance person?
Yeah, you get to change roles as you grow older. You get to be more of a mentor. Some guys we brought in, being the old guy in the room, you really want to take them under your wing and show them what it's like to be a player at Ashland and how we do things.
And when you look at the offensive linemen, what qualities are you looking at for them to see coming out of the gates in hopes of them kind of fulfilling your shoes?
Yeah, for an offensive lineman, obviously we want to be gritty, we want to be tough, and then you can't coach size. So you obviously want to get guys that are big, and then if you get to be ideal, you got to have good feet and good hands. But that's stuff that we can coach up later down the road, and but ideally that's what we'd like to have right off the get go.
Yeah, and Coach Geiser, back on the Doug Geiser show earlier in the fall, had talked about there's a unique dynamic sometimes coming in where even as a junior or a senior, they can also learn things from freshmen, incoming freshmen. It's a two-way street where learning can occur. I mean, for you, what are some of the exciting things that you're ready to learn about from these
Oh yeah, ready to learn from guys. Everybody has a different way of doing things. Obviously, we coach certain ways to do things, but there's never one right answer. And maybe a guy's already got a technique that he likes that you can really steal from his part of his game, and maybe add that to your tool belt as well. And that's something you're always excited to learn.
And have you been able to meet any of these new offensive linemen yet?
Oh yeah, I got to host one of hopefully my replacement if he doesn't take my job right away. Trevor Whitney. We already signed him today. I got to host him and meet his family and whatnot, and excited to get him on campus and get him in the room.
Exactly. And when you take a look at the chance to play with these new recruits, obviously you've got quite a bit of time until next year. But I talked to AJ Nikolai about this, but how do you still kind of try to maintain ththese relationships and grow them, even though they might not be on campus?
Yeah, after we sign them, they're kind of ours. So we like to get them up for they're invited to all of our spring practices, our spring game. So you get to meet guys there as well, because not everybody in the room's met all of our new signees, but really get them to get on campus, and then we'll see them hopefully in the summer workouts before we even start fall camp. So that's a great way that we get to stay connected before the season.
When you look at these new guys coming into, obviously you guys had a very successful 2024 fall season. What hopes do you have for them trying to raise the bar in 2025?
Yeah, we get told this every year, but there's 5 positions open on the O-line every year. Just because we started last year doesn't mean that's our position this year. This is our job. So, hopefully you bring guys in that can compete right away and hopefully take a job. That's how you consistently get better, is if you're always competing with somebody to take your job.
And obviously, too, a big thing is when those college athletes come in, you don't want them to get discouraged being behind upperclassmen. What would be some of your advice to some of those guys out there right now who might be expecting competition and be ready to come in and trying to fight for it?
Yeah, it's hard to go from being a big fish at a small school to going back to the young guy, going back to being a freshman. And if you come in with the right attitude of I want to learn first, that'll give you the best opportunity to possibly take a job. But if you come in with the attitude of I'm going to learn and do my job and get better, then you're setting yourself up for success later.
And obviously, too, the college life has a lot to do with football and being an athlete, but it also has that word that comes in front of it sometimes, student athlete. When you take a look at your time as being a student, you've been very successful, have had very good grades and whatnot. What's kind of your advice for those people coming in as well to hit the ground running on the school side?
Yeah, you got to figure out your time management. How does that fit into how does school fit into your schedule? Prioritizing school, obviously, we can't play this great game forever, and eventually have to find real jobs. And that comes back to what you study in school and making sure that you do put equal, if not more, effort into the school side of things to really make yourself successful.
Well, Ethan, I appreciate you sitting down with me here today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Of course. It's time to take a break. We'll catch you guys here soon for the rest of hour number 1 right here on the Ashland University Football Signing Day Live 2025 edition. Don't go anywhere right here on the Great Midwest Digital Network.
My name is Alina Williams. I'm a grad student here and I'm on the track and field team. Black History Month is super important to me because it gives me a chance to learn about, recognize, and celebrate the accomplishments of those that came before me. And being someone who's ran track all their life, I have had the opportunity to look up to so many different women who have graced the world of track and field. Starting with Florence Griffith Joyner, who has 2 world records, to Allison Felix, who is the most decorated athlete in track and field history, to Sydney McLaughlin-Lebroni, who also has a world record, and to
Welcome back into the Ashland University Football Signing Day Live 2025 edition. I'm Cade Cracas, and now joined alongside Director of Athletic Communications, Dusty Sloan. Dusty, thanks so much.
It's a pleasure to be here, wrapping up a long day, but a big day.
Certainly is a long day. As we approach the second hour, obviously, we've had a lot today, and you got a little shout out earlier from AJ Nikolai about kind of what you've been able to do here today and what your role really is on signing day. But first and foremost, for the audience out there, how long have you been in Ashland? What brought you to Ashland? Let's get a little bit of background information.
Sure, I appreciate that shout out, AJ, as well. The check's in the mail. Don't worry about it. This is 10 and a half years basically now. Started in October 2014. So this is my 11th signing day. Probably the easiest one, to be honest, simply because of all the procedures we put in place and just making sure that everything comes from just one place. This has been a great setup. You and Caleb have done a fine job, B. Gunder, and everybody behind the scenes. What you try to do is just make things better year in and year out, right? So we used to have, when I first started here, we used to have the press conferences in here, the VIP room, and we'd have people from the community come and take questions from Coach Owens and things like that. But then COVID kind of got in the way with that, and you did try to figure out what the best way is to promote something like signing day. And I think when you have all of the pieces in place, right, the stuff on the website where people can look at the bios and then click on the highlight videos and things like that. We have the social media graphics going out throughout the day, and then this to finish it off. I think when you have all of those things in place, it makes it as big as it should be.
For sure. I know we've talked specifically, me and you, this year about having those 3 different levels, kind of completing the triangle of you have the broadcast side, the online presence, written, and then the graphic side as well. But you look back to maybe your early days as an SID, and then there wasn't really a big push for social media. So how would you kind of promote these guys in a realm of getting people to go to the website and do all these different things?
Absolutely. I mean, it's definitely changed over time. I remember my first one in 2015, I didn't really know what I was doing. It was the first time I did it. I learned obviously from the great Al King, who had done it for 20 plus years before that. But I remember vividly that was one year when we had 55 recruits in one day. Unfortunately, my grandpa had passed away, so that day was his calling hours. So I had to try to get all of this stuff done on the website with that in the middle, which was not easy. But yeah, you tried it back then. You didn't have streaming in any way, shape, or form. Twitter and Facebook wasn't nearly as prevalent. I don't even know if MySpace was around back then.
I don't even know.
Have I been around that long? But yeah, the ability to take what you get and get it out to as many people as possible has gotten better. Now the advent of newspapers kind of changing, maybe not so much in print, that has made things a little bit more difficult. But the ability for us in-house to do things and get things out timelier and to a wider swath of people has definitely gotten better over the last decade.
And there's a unique thing too that I'd like to ask a question about, Dusty, here. When you look at someone like myself who might be younger, I've grown up with the digital element. I've always known it, if that makes sense. It's just kind of been something I've done since day one. But for you having to adapt and learn over time, I mean, what has that been like?
Well, you have to be able to adapt to anything really and be quick on your feet if you can possibly be that, because again, 10 years ago, I never would have dreamed that we'd have done something like this on football signing day. Wouldn't even have imagined it. So even in that relatively short period of time of 10 years, things have changed so much. So what's going to happen in the next 10 years? What's going to be the avenue where we take the information that we've done now, and how are we going to get that and assimilate it out to everybody who needs to know about it? We don't know what it's going to be yet, but you have to be adaptable to it. Otherwise, you're going to fall behind.
For sure. And when you take a look at this year's signing day, obviously you've got a lot of things on the plate. You've been writing stuff all morning long. How do you stay fluid and up to date with all the information that you have to provide on the website?
It's really no different than any other day. If it's just a normal, quote unquote, normal 8 to 4 day, it's really like what Coach Geiser said. You got to have preparation. You got to have the stuff that the coaches give you, and you're ready to go with that. It's on the screen. So when a kid info sheet comes down, I've got all the information and I type it out as it comes in. I don't wait, because that's why part of this was very smooth this year. Was things kind of came in kind of gradually. It wasn't 5 info sheets this time and 10 info sheets 10 minutes later. Things were very smooth that way. And as long as you're prepared with the information you have ahead of time, you're able to get everything out in a timely manner. And I think we did that better than ever this year.
For sure. And on the future side of things, I mean, obviously you've talked so much about the past and what different things have been like. I mean, what do you think future signing days? Is it going to be like this every year, or how is it going to probably adapt over time?
It's going to be different year in and year out, simply because, like Coach Geiser said, how are things going to change as far as timing wise? Are we going to have an early signing day at some point? Are we going to do 2 of these? You don't know what's coming down the pike, whether it's the NCAA, whether it's compliance, whether it's technology. So this could very much look different in 2035.
For sure, Dusty. Well, I appreciate you taking time out of your very busy day to sit down with me.
Appreciate it.
We take a break. We'll join you back here soon on the Great Midwest Digital Network.
Need a construction team that can do it all? Bo Lacey Construction delivers experience you can trust, done right on time, with free estimates and special financing offered for roofing, siding, gutters, windows, bathrooms, decks, to the highest standards of excellence, quality, and knowledge in the industry. Bring your next project to life with Bo Lacey Construction.
Welcome back into the Ashland University Football Signing Day Live 2025 edition. I'm Cade Cracas, joined back again here by head coach Doug Geiser. Coach, Cade.
Yeah, it's good to be back.
It's great to be back. And when you look at this year's signing day so far, I mean, hey, it's been going off without a hitch so far. I mean, a couple small things here and there, but on your end, you want to refresh the audience on kind of what you've been up to since the start of the morning?
Well, the morning you come in, and I know Dom was here bright and early, making sure everything running smooth, double checking the triple check. Assistants coming in early. I came in at 9 o'clock. Started handing out rings. Championship team, so I felt like Santa Claus in that respect. And then I've taken a couple phone calls. Guys, when they sign, they want to call in and let me sign, and they're excited, and so interacting with. It's been a fun day.
Yeah, and speaking about last year, I mean, you mentioned the rings and giving those out. Obviously, lots of success in the 2024 fall season. When you take a look back at it, obviously, we haven't been able to talk on the Doug Geiser Show for December, it feels like. It's been quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
So to refresh the audience a little bit on how the year went, and now that you've been removed a couple months, kind of what your thoughts are.
Well, overall, one of our goals beginning of the year is always to win the conference. Fortunate enough to win, even though there wasn't an AQ or automatic qualifier for the playoffs, we had earned access. Qualified and had to go down to Charleston. First round, they were sixth in the country, and we're fortunate enough to come away with a win, a last-second win. Surprised to learn after the game, first road playoff win. School in a program that's been around for 104 seasons, be able to still accomplish first, positive, always a fun thing. We earned the right to go to Cal PA, played them tough and played them to the end. Fortunately, came up 1 point short. It was ultimately a successful season. We didn't get the ultimate goal we're going for, but it's good progress.
And something you always fail to mention when I ask you that question is your honor of winning Coach of the Year in the conference. When you look at that too in your second year coach, I mean, how special is that?
It's been fun. It's been fun. It's confirmation that a lot of things I believe in. I've had good mentors. Follow the system at Ashland. It also means, in all likelihood, it is a team on. It really. We have a great team. We have a great culture, great players, tremendous staff, support staff, and so it really is a team effort. And you don't win that award unless your team is good, staff is good. Kudos to them.
And when you look at this past year, I mean, you talked about it being a big kudos to the team and everyone as a whole who's collectively going for the same goal of trying to go win a national championship. You guys won that conference championship and performed well in the playoffs, but it wasn't all easy at the beginning, especially with a number of injuries to the team, specifically on the defensive end. I know we've talked about that all year long, Coach, that next man up mentality. How do you think it was fulfilled?
Well, it wasn't only defensive end, it was also wide receiver. We went into the first game at IUP down 3 of our top receivers. And Jen Joseph had not a career, but a season-ending injury. So really it was great respect to Trevor Bazinski, be able to assimilate the next group of receivers, getting up to speed as possible. Young in the offensive line once again, and talented, but very young and experienced working together. You mentioned defensive end. You're there. And really, we never talk about injury. As a team, as a staff, players, we never talk. And I tell them the expectation is for the position. That's the way it's always been now. So you can't drown your sorrows and say, woe is me and all that sort of stuff. Because, guess what? IUP doesn't care about that. Ferris doesn't care about that. Hillsdale doesn't care. They wish you had more, more adversity to go through. So you find a way at the end of the day as Ashland team to have success. That's what you.
Is that something that you're preaching to these new guys that are coming in?
It absolutely is. It is truly about the team. Man, and we compete like crazy, and the best players are going to play. But you got to be ready. Next man mentality, and to be called on in the next snap, even though you're not playing right now. So that's just part of building that team here at Ashland. It's part of being an Ashland, being a team above yourself.
That's something that we saw this year. A lot of true freshmen were given opportunities, specifically early in the year, to step into roles and play in some big games. Isaiah Ramsey played a game here at home on a Thursday night, I think it was. It was one of those early games in the year. I mean, what is that like on the pitching side to some of these guys who have signed and decided to join this team that, hey, you can get out there early in your career?
Yeah, and it just adds the confirmation when say that it's not just a shtick or spiel to get you interested to come to Ashland. It's also nice too. You know, we're talking on signing day 2025. On signing day 2024, we're excited about players such as Isaiah, Sam Wakula, guys like that were asked to play a bigger role than maybe expected sooner than expected. You know, so it's confirmation to the coaches too with their evaluation process. Yeah, we're pretty spot on evaluating these guys. It makes us excited about this year's class too. We think it's another really good class.
And coach, too, when you take a look at this class as a whole, you talked very heavily about how excited you are for this team. And when it comes to the success side of things you saw last year, does that raise the bar in guys that you're looking at every year when you continue to find success, or is there always a specific general skill level you guys are looking at?
We're looking. We measure ourselves, against the best in the look at guys and we evaluate them. Can they help us win our ultimate goal? That's the question. That's the bar. Not, winning against A or C, but we're working towards an ultimate goal. The guys we sign have to help us be able to achieve that ultimate goal. Does this year's team raise the bar? It absolutely does. As I've talked to our team about, I am really hypersensitive right now in the off season, looking at coaches and players, sense any complacency. We are not gifted going back to where we were last year because our name is. That's not going to happen. If anything, there's a bigger target on our back. We've got to prepare more, do something in a preparation this year we didn't do last year. Get beyond. We have the same preparation, we're going to have the same result, less. That's what raising the bar is, and realizing that obligation. Now, the exciting thing is this: guys have experienced now 2 playoff games. Part of this hunger to win. That's real. It's not a complacency. It's not that we're gifted to get back there, but they now feel it and they want more. But their appetite. That's exciting.
Yeah, and when you look at kind of the chance for the ability to do that again next year, I know that we talked about during the season how you don't look at the league as a whole. You never know what's going on in the standings or who really won. You kind of just focus on that next week. When it goes to the offseason here on signing day, are you looking at what other teams are trying to build for their team to beat a team like you guys?
Yeah, I'll actually do that tonight. After our signing has completed, get the guys we expect to get, we'll have a coach's dinner, kind of a celebration, kind of catch your breath type of thing. And during the rest of the night, I'll look at the other teams in the conference. We know a lot of it already just being on the road. That sort of thing, but you're always surprised by it. The one thing I can say is the league continues to raise its profile. Look at your traditional teams that have won the GMAC in the past. Hillsdale, your Tiffin, your Ohio Dominican, your Findlay. They're always really good. If you look at this past year and the jump some of these teams made, you're talking from Northwood, one of the best defensive teams in the league. Really, really. Dustin Bure's doing a hell of a job. Language. Okay. You look at somebody like Walsh. Came out of nowhere, and they've always been really, really salty on defense. Their offense was conference, and they're an up and coming. You look at teams like that, Thomas More. You look at Lake Erie with David Price, and see the way they're doing things the right way, and the players are getting it. So it is increasingly a challenge every week just to get that first goal of winning the conference. So it's exciting. It spurs the competitive juices, but it's also concerning.
Exactly. Well, obviously, too, we talk about conference teams an awful lot as well. But are you looking at teams outside, like the Ferris states, like the Grand Valley states, teams in the GLIAC and around the area that are always competing for national championships as well?
Yeah, you look at that. You look at guys on the schedule. I'll always, in addition to looking GMAC, I'll look GLIAC because we were in there so long, and I had 18 years coaching. I still have friends there. I understand the level of competition. Second game in this past season, we played national champion. Guys understand what that takes to beat a team like that. We didn't do a great job against them. We got to step up our game, but that's the goal.
I know, and we've got trophies around us here that circumference and that show that Ashland football is having success, and they've had success in the past. We've got the 500 all-time win ball right here. I mean, what does history mean to the program?
History means this: you get a chance to stand on the shoulders of those who've come before you. But you also realize it's not about you. Okay, it doesn't give us any extra points to start, and we start Jack Norris Stadium. We don't start up 14-0 because we're Ashland. But what it does, it gives confirmation that it's follow the plan. If you follow the system, it can be not hoping, expecting. That little subtle change in perception and perspective there is the biggest.
And when you take a look at that breach of everything that we're talking about right now, we're talking about the success of the team last year, the history that's built upon this team, the culture that's here. How do you effectively communicate all of this to people who want to become the next Eagle, people that have signed and committed to this team? I mean, it's so much information. How do you effectively give a plan to give that to those next coming years?
When guys come in to visit, this starts on game day visits, it starts on official visits. We mentioned, hey, when you're going through this process, there's not a training, okay? But I want to give you 5 things to look at as you're looking to pick your next school. Obviously, knowing that we stack up pretty well on these 5 things. Okay, one of the things we mentioned is being a tradition where you talk about the players on the team, you talk about coaches on, you talk about facilities. Okay, you talk about academics. Those things add up. This might be a lot of people have taken that.
Coach, I appreciate you joining me again.
Yep.
We will take a break and join you all back here soon. A reminder not to go anywhere as we've got hour number 2 coming your way here for the Ashland University Football Signing Day Live 2025 edition, right here on the Great Midwest Digital Network.
Need a construction team that can do it all? Bo Lacey Construction delivers experience you can trust, done right on time, with free estimates and special financing offered for roofing, siding, gutters, windows, bathrooms, decks, to the highest standards of excellence, quality, and knowledge in the industry. Bring your next project to life with Bo Lacey Construction.
Welcome back to the Ashland University Football Signing Day Live 2025 edition. I'm Cade Cracas, joined back alongside Doug Geiser here for hour number 2. Coach, I appreciate you joining me.
That first hour went pretty quick.
I know, it flew on by. I wasn't expecting that at all. Speaking of this broadcast, this Signing Day Live, I mean, we talked about this, back in January, would it have been? Early January? Maybe last December? I think we talked about it even last year. But, I mean, do you want to give the audience a little bit of an in-depth onto what the conversations have been like in order to really pull this thing off?
I'll tell you what, it's a credit to you, first and foremost, staff and Dusty and Caleb, bringing Caleb back, on staff as well. Just having a vision to, make this as big and as powerful and as marketable and as positive an experience as it can be. It's great to be at a place where you have the resources where that can happen. But I know, it kind of grew, I think, probably from Doug Geiser's show, kind of the vision from that, and just kind of build it from it and try to take that to a next level. So, not because you're sitting here, but kudos to you for having that vision and wanting to do this in the first place, and thinking that I might not scare away too many viewers.
Exactly, too. I appreciate that, Coach. And when you look at kind of what we've been able to do together, I mean, throughout our time here at Ashland, obviously since you become that head coach, I mean, we worked together to make the Doug Geiser Show happen on AUTV, and then on 88.9 WRDL, we started doing our weekly interviews on the morning show. I mean, so it's funny, but it's the opportunities that Ashland provides for these different skill sets to be grown upon. I mean, did you expect when you became head coach to be doing all this different media stuff all the time?
Did not. I did not expect to do that, but it's all about part of marketing the program. Ashland is a great, almost an unknown, untapped gem, secret to a lot of people. It's a tremendous place where you can learn, develop the skills you need to move on in life, and as evidenced, by you what you're doing here. I mean, just remember the little people when you make it big at ESPN or Fox Sports here in the future. That's all I ask, But it's been fun. It's been fun, and the reason you do this is for the alums, for the boosters, for potential recruits, to show them that Ashland is.
And this is kind of moving gears into the spring side of things. This is that weird time where I feel like you guys still are pushing and going in the weight rooms and doing a plentiful amount of stuff to keep yourself ready to go for the fall campaign. But it's also that weird time, like we've talked about, where it's about January, February or so, and then things really heat up on the practicing side in March and April. I mean, is that kind of how you interpret it as well?
Yeah, I think we've talked a couple times. The neat part about my job is the focus, emphasis changes every 4 months. So we're in that hot crucible of the season for 4 months. And then all of a sudden, I'm on the bus back from Cal PA after the loss, already thinking about recruiting. We have an official visit the next week, making sure that we have everything in place to be off. Well, the first phase of recruiting is coming to a close here is on signing day. And now we jump headlong into a self-evaluation. Look at the season and through a very, very unjaded eye. Brutally honest. What did we do well? What do we need to continue? What do we need to work on? And so that's the phase we're jumping into. And oh, by the way, while the coaches are doing that, players are in their get big, get strong phase. Winter cycle is the most important training cycle of the football player. And for us, since we are such a very young team, a lot of respects, we're very physically immature. We need to be able to bridge that gap with the older teams physically. Our players are doing a good job kind of.
Yeah, and when you look at the next few weeks, when do you guys start actually getting back out on the field and getting inside the nest and starting to work on the practice side of things? And obviously, too, then you got scrimmages coming as well.
Yeah, spring practice will start the week after spring break, March 11th, practice. We're in an 8-week training cycle right now. We'll culminate in testing the last week in February. During that time, we'll also do a little competition and accountability. That's the end of the first phase of the offseason. And then players are going on spring break. You come back, all of a sudden we shift into 5 weeks of spring practice, 3 days a week. Spring game will be on Saturday, April 12th at 1 o'clock. So that'll be the culmination of that time. And spring practice is like a laboratory. All that stuff we want to experiment with, that we want to be able to enhance the program, the system a little bit, you want to try out, the time to do it is spring.
Sure. And when you look at some of the opportunities for these guys to kind of get out to these practices, I know we talked to Ethan Enders earlier, and he said it's a perfect opportunity for these signees to come back and attend these practices and whatnot. When you look at the chance to at least come face-to-face with some of these guys on signing day, then also down the road, and then you look at a chance as well to see what your next sophomores and juniors and current players have to offer. How do you keep track of all these people?
Well, I don't know. question. I've been accused of having a photographic memory. I used to work with the roster when I was so it's kind of ingrained to me. Plus, it's also kind of a personal sort of pride of knowing everybody on the team by their name and where they're from and what. I think as part of the individual, the accent on the individual and athletic. But in order for me to be as demanding as a coach, players need to know that the head coach knows, has a vision for the program. That's part of that, getting to know it and building those relationships. That's the fun part for me.
Well, Coach, I appreciate you so much joining me for now. We won't catch you until the end of the show to wrap things up.
That sounds good to me.
Thanks again, Coach. When we return, we will be joined by Dominic Orsini to talk about the recruiting side of things and get a little bit more in-depth information there. A reminder not to go anywhere, right here on Ashland University Football Signing Day Live 2025, right here on the Great Midwest Digital Network.
To the Great Midwest Athletic Conference, where greatness is achieved from heart-stopping moments to incredible teamwork and unyielding determination. This is more than a conference. It's a community of excellence where academic success meets athletic prowess and future leaders are forged. The Great Midwest Athletic Conference. Building character through competition.
Welcome back to the Ashland University Football Signing Day Live 2025 edition. I'm Cade, Cracas, alongside Dominic Orsini. Coach, thanks for joining me.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on.
It's great to have you on, the mastermind of the recruiting, if you will. When you take this year's signing day, first and foremost, how's it been for you so far?
It's been great. It's been great. Coach Nikolai, I heard him talking earlier. We have this set process every recruiting day, and this is about my sixth season as recruiting coordinator. So things that I used to be stressed about, maybe 2-3 years ago, it runs pretty smooth today. So everything from the morning to today, has been really smooth. Got some big names out there. So so far, so good.
And when you look at the challenges you might face throughout the year in terms of getting ready for signing day and in the recruiting process in general, what can some of those challenges be?
Yeah, I think the big part is constantly recruiting these guys, throughout the whole process. Because the guys that we're looking at, right, they're fringe D1 guys. Okay, so, we're competing with MAC schools, FCS schools like Youngstown State, things like that. So really to pull some of those bigger names to our programs, it starts all the way back in springtime, maybe even their sophomore year in some cases. all the way until today, just to make sure they're not getting snagged at the last moment. So I would say that's the biggest thing. And then for my job, getting all the paperwork in today is always a headache. But for the most part, it ran really smooth. Shout out to Christine Thompson, our secretary. She's doing a great job, helping me out today, as well as Dusty Sloan and HSLD Hustle. They're a great third-party social media company that we brought in that's helped Coach Nikolai and the whole social media landscape across the board for our program.
So far, I mean, it seems like it's been a great day. And when you take a look at preparation to making it a great day, obviously it can't be a great day without bringing in guys. You look at the recruiting side of things. What are the ways in which you evaluate potential recruits? How do you bring them to the program? How do you get them interested?
Yeah, so a lot of it starts with the spring workouts, and where coaches are going around to these high schools and watching these guys live. And that's even before the camps really get going. So sometimes we see these guys, these lists that coaches send us, and we see maybe 6'5" or 6'6". So boom, you're already getting our interest. But until we see you in person, move around, we're really not putting too much time into you. But the second we see you and we know, hey, that guy can help us win a conference championship and get to other goals that we have. Once we see that, it's all in, and really from there, it's just really starting that recruiting process and continuously recruiting them.
Yeah, and obviously too, with how long the process is of recruiting, looking at high school, all different years. How do you keep that pipeline in place? How do you keep that list strong when it not miss up on any guys?
Yeah, I think a lot has to do with just the relationship with the high school coaches. Those are the guys that those high school players, right? All of us played high school sports. Who did you trust the most outside your parents? So really just continuously building those relationships with those coaches, continuously going to their schools, whether they got guys or not that year. Just building those relationships, knowing, hey, we want to be here. We want to help get your guys to a program. And when you got a guy that can help us win a championship, hey, let's get them to Ashland.
Yeah, and when you look at signing day as a whole, what's really the significance of signing day from the perspective of the recruiting process?
Yeah, I think it's just like the cherry on top of the whole thing, right? Like we've been recruiting since springtime for this class, and really today's just a day to really showcase all our hard work and really showcase the future of Ashland football, which look at the names we signed today is really bright.
And I think a big thing too is something that I talked about with head coach Doug Geiser and AJ Nikolai as well in that first hour. But there's sometimes a tough aspect of recruiting where there might be guys that are ready to contribute right away or within the first year or two. The other guys you have to develop. How do you kind of manage the expectations for those different athletes?
Yeah, like personally, I always tell the recruits coming in, like it's really hard to play as a freshman. We're coaching 21, 22, even 23, 24-year-olds in some cases. So that first year, come in, keep your head above water, get used to the college life, sports, academics, social life, all that stuff. And really a lot of these freshmen, yeah, they can come in the first semester. We'll have a handful that help us, but a lot of them are helping us out with scout team, getting humbled a little bit. Everyone comes from being the all-star, right? So they come to college and they got to get humbled, do some scout team. But we also have a JV program where they can play up to 4 games now with the new NCAA rule and still keep their red shirts. So the fact that we have enough guys on our roster to facilitate a JV game and have them go out and play 4 games and use our plays and not just be another guy out there on scout team, but really developing in that fall season, whether it's on the field or in the weight room, I think really helps those guys kind of stay focused in the process and know, hey, my time's coming. These guys that are playing right now, they were in my shoes. They did this hard work, but hey, my time.
And that's the unique thing as well, is that there's current players who may have been through situations and those circumstances that these freshmen and incoming guys are going to have to go through. How do the current players play a pivotal role in helping adapt and make sure that these guys are ready to go?
Yeah, I think, we have these accountability teams in our program, and a lot of that is the upperclassmen breaking down basically the team into like 14, 15 accountability, right? And I think that helps the upperclassmen kind of focus. Like you can't take care of everyone, right? But the guys in their accountability team, hey, let's focus on those guys. And the fact that everybody does it really helps those freshmen. If they have issues and they don't want to come to a coach, hey, they can come to somebody in their position room or their accountability captain or just an upperclassman team. So as you know, I mean, we have a really tight-knit group, very family-oriented team. And I think with those accountability teams, it really helps keep our whole team intact.
And we've talked about and explored too the mindset of a college athlete. There's a word that comes before that athlete, student side of things.
Yeah.
How do you make sure that a potential recruit is going to have both that student side and the athlete
Yeah, I mean, a lot of that is, we get transcripts, so we kind of see what type of student you were from freshman year now, and we have a great academic coordinator, Donzel Ashley, out there, and he does a great job. Anybody that is coming in with a lower GPA than we would like, we just really make sure that, hey, we're going to give you all the resources we have at Ashland, which is a lot. Right? And we're also going to just make sure that, hey, you're going to be successful here, because football, yeah, it's great. You're going to win a lot of games when you come here, but what's life after football? And we want to make sure you're prepared for life after football.
And when you look at your time here at Ashland, how have you seen kind of signing day evolve over time, and maybe the interest from athletes? Obviously, that we've seen it kind of more come down to, hey, we don't really want to do the physical side in terms of coming out and showcase stuff. We want to see the digital side. We want to have the social media graphics.
Yeah. I mean, it's changed. I mean, it's night and day from when I got here. We had pretty much no footprint on the social media market. We weren't even doing pictures when I first got here. So to see what we're doing now, having a great social media company with us, having Coach Nikolai kind of head the whole thing, I think, the social media part's probably been the biggest part. Everything else is pretty similar, but to really be able to showcase our recruits and for them to be able to showcase themselves and spread Ashland football everywhere, I think has been the biggest difference from now and 8 years started.
And what strategies have you learned throughout this year's process, maybe this year's signing day, even, that you're going to implement next year, try to grow upon?
Yeah, I mean, I think the social media part is always the thing, that buzz thing, the hot thing. That's always, what's the school going to have for us this year? What's the big trend going on? I think, whether it's things like this or things that Coach Nikolai thinks of with Hustle, it's what the recruits want. I mean, we're trying to get them come here and we're trying to draw their interest. So it's really trying to see what the landscape in the market is, and just making sure that, hey, we're up to date with everything. We never want to fall behind. And that's why we're always doing new things year after year. These kids in it.
And lastly, too, your job as recruiting coordinator, does it ever end? Is there ever an end in sight for you? Do you ever get a day to, relax and not have to worry about the next recruiting class, or are you always just full go?
I mean, we're pretty much full go. Like, we're not done recruiting this year's class, and really once spring ball starts, we start moving on to 26s, and we'll be back here in about a year. Friends.
Well, Coach Rusin, I appreciate you sitting down with me.
Absolutely, thank you.
We'll take a break and join you all back here soon. A reminder not to go anywhere. We've got a couple great segments coming your way right here on the Great Midwest Digital Network.
To the Great Midwest Athletic Conference, where greatness is achieved from heart-stopping moments to incredible teamwork and unyielding determination. This is more than a conference. It's a community of excellence where academic success meets athletic prowess and future leaders are forged. The Great Midwest Athletic Conference. Building character through competition.
Welcome back into the Ashland University Football Signing Day Live 2025 edition. I'm Cade Cracas, now joined alongside Jack Talkington, a true sophomore here on the Ashland University Football team. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
Of course, when you take a look at, first and foremost, this year's signing day, on the defensive side of things, I mean, how has it looked for you guys?
It looks pretty well. I keep updated with it on the Instagram about how many are coming in. I had a chance to meet 3 of them who toured me. Aiden Weimer, Tyler Sauter, and Ben Khalil. I think that's how you say his last name. They're all really good players.
And when you look at kind of taking a step back real quick and looking at your signing day, what was that one like for you?
My signing day was pretty cool. It was a lot different from Cam Blair and Ethan Enders, who had to do it with COVID, but mine was really neat.
And when you look at kind of the difference, obviously COVID is a big thing, and it really did affect signing days. But now that you've been able to have that underneath your belt, how are you able to relate with some of the signees for this year?
I think being able to relate with them was great, because everybody's signing day is different. Everybody does like a different tradition or ceremony. For me, mine was during basketball practice. I got to exit basketball practice, and my mom, my dad, all my head coaches were there, and it was just really neat.
And when you look at the signing day this year, obviously, too, I mean, you're bringing in guys who might be competing with you for your position. Do you think that competition obviously helps you grow as a player?
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, competition is what makes everything fun. Nobody's coming in here and has their spot secured. Like even players who started last year, their spot's not secured. Anybody can come in, anybody can take it. That's just what makes it so much fun.
Exactly. And when you take a look at the opportunity to work with these new potential freshmen come this summer and into the fall, what are you most looking forward to?
I can kind of see myself in the role of being more of a teacher, helping out as much as I am a player, because if anybody knows our defense, it's pretty complicated. And those defensive kids are going to struggle. And I can speak for myself. I struggled my freshman year, and I didn't really figure it out until the last game.
And speaking of obviously your freshman year and now as a true sophomore, I mean, you've been thrust into new opportunities each and every year as an underclassman. What is kind of your way in which that you tell that to incomers and people who might be interested in the program from the standpoint of, hey, I mean, as an underclassman, you can get opportunities.
Yeah, that's what everybody wants to come in and do. Everybody wants to make that field, man, because nothing like it. But whenever you come in there and you're a dude coming from high school and you go on to college, you get humbled a little bit. I was humbled a lot, but you just gotta stick with it. You gotta stick with the process. You gotta trust the coaches that they have a plan for you.
And signing day every year is obviously very exciting, but when you take a look at the expectations, kind of the intensity moving forward, what is something that you'd like to say to those high schoolers that are getting ready for that college life?
Expectations are always high. We always want to meet high expectations so we can be great. But I think the biggest thing, you got to learn how to take criticism. Because when I first met Coach Rose, about 2 days into camp, there's a lot of criticism you have to take. And those kids, they better be ready.
Exactly. And from your perspective, too, obviously, you've talked about how you've been able to get those opportunities and really get humbled and get that criticism. What makes a successful linebacker?
What makes a successful linebacker is a lot of things, really. Like I said, you got to take the criticism. You got to be smart. You got to know what 22 people are doing on the field. You got to know what the offense is doing. You got to know what the defense is behind you is doing. That's how you trust them. But, those are really the two big things. Linebackers are hard.
For sure. And from the team's perspective, what do you think the specific areas off the field you guys are trying to focus on when it comes to these recruits?
Off the field, I'd probably say, we just lost great defensive linemen: Christian Garish, Colin Strong, Mason Graney. We lost Devin Prude, Bobby Young, some great players, and you really can't fill those shoes. So kids who got to come in, there's gonna be a lot of expectations.
For sure. And when you take a look at academically and the community service side of things, that's also something that head coach Doug Geiser says makes an Ashland man. Obviously, you got the success on the field, but off the field, you've got to put in that work. I mean, is that something that you are going to help portray and push on to those incoming freshmen?
I'm going to do my best to. My academic, I had some struggles. I'll be honest, I did. But the way I'm doing now, I'm heading down a pretty smooth road, and I'm majoring in education. I think it will be at the same time.
For sure. And my last question for you here, Jack, when you take a look at just your ability to lead next year, I mean, what should these incoming high schoolers expect from you?
They should expect from me is that I'm not going to do nothing that I wouldn't tell them to do. Everything that I'm going to tell them to do, I'm going to do the same. And I'm just going to let them know I'm going to be right here by your side through all the hell we go through. Make sure that we get the same job we want to get done.
Exactly. Well, thanks so much for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
When we return, we will jump right back into the show. Reminder not to go anywhere, right here on the Great Midwest Digital Network.
What's up, GMAC fans? I'm Cade, host of the Talkin' GMAC podcast. We hope you'll join us each week for all things GMAC, from interviews with current and former student athletes to headlines and highlights from around the league. Find the Talkin' GMAC podcast on the Great Midwest Digital Network or wherever you get your podcasts.
Welcome back to the Ashland University Football Signing Day Live 2025 edition. I'm Cade Cracas, joined back alongside Dusty Sloan. Dusty, thanks for taking time out of your day.
Another segment. The day never ends, but it's been a great one.
Exactly. It never really does. I know you got to get out for a haircut here soon,
yes,
too.
Yes, much needed. Much needed.
So now focusing more on the fun side of signing day. I know we talked all about business before. We were straight to how it's been, what you've been up to, how it's grown over time. But the fun side is something that you heavily have been wanting to talk about.
That's cool, right? Because you're looking at these kids' bios and they fill out these info sheets and they put some neat information in there that you can maybe use later on. For instance, one of our recruits, and I apologize not remembering which one that you are, but happens to be the cousin of one of our women's soccer players, Lexi Howe. Those are kind of the cool things that you learn about these players. And I know that DeJuan Harvey, who was a running back here and a very successful running back in the late 2000s, his son, DJ Harvey, is coming here. So it'll be interesting to see what he does in an Eagle uniform. And then Jeff Ulenake's son, for anyone who's about my age, who probably watched him play at Ohio State, All-American center, played for the Miami Dolphins and a few other teams, and his son's coming here. So you like to get those little tidbits in those bios that are kind of neat, that you kind of followed people over the years.
And Dusty, how do you keep track of all this information across so many different, levels, high school, professional, college, and you're finding a way to relate it all back here? How do you keep track of all that?
God-given talent, I guess. It's God-given talent. It's what he's given me, and they say that you only use 10% of your brain. Well, I guess 9% of that 10% is sports. But I love doing this kind of thing. That's why I've done it for, now it's going to be 32 years I've been doing this kind of thing, 2/3 of my life. It's kind of remarkable to kind of think about it in those terms. But you just love remembering things like that and being able to recall it as you need it.
And the cool thing, too, Dusty, is, obviously having these people who have been related to people who attend Ashland or have attended Ashland before. From your perspective, you've had so much experience to be able to see these people come through. What keeps people coming back to Ashland?
It's the same reason that I came back. It's obviously easy to say, well, I came back because I didn't want to deliver pizzas anymore. Well, that was one thing. But the other thing is, you come back and you still had the Doug Geisers here, the Lee Owens here, the Judd Logans here, and the John Shalley's here, and the Sheila Goulises here. It's the people. And people time and time again will come back and say that. And that's kind of the cool thing about what we've started as a department with these Eagle Rewinds and talking to former athletes. What are they doing now? What would they tell people if they say, hey, my kid might want to go to Ashland University? What should you relay to them? It always comes back to the people. The people are what makes this place great and what it's always going to make.
And for you, obviously, too, there's got to be some sort of investment into it being such a pivotal player in signing day, having to do all these different updates on the website. How do you stay invested every year in all these new freshmen that are coming in?
You can't do this job without loving what you're doing. And you want to root for these people because when I was working at the Ashland Times-Gazette, being a media member, you can't root for a team. But now being a part of Ashland University and being in athletic communications, I can root for these teams. I can sit there and hang on every pitch of that softball game where we beat number 3 Indianapolis. I can hang on every play when we were down at Cal PA and when we played Finley to 4 overtimes last year. So being an alum, I'm invested in it, and I want to see these teams succeed because it makes my job more fun when they do.
Well, Dusty, I appreciate you so much sitting down with me here today.
Appreciate it.
When we return, we will have our next player. Make sure to stay tuned for that. We're not going to announce it just yet. You have to wait till after the commercial break to see who's next on, but you certainly don't want to miss it. Right here on the Great Midwest Digital Network.
What's up, GMAC fans? I'm Cade, host of the Talkin' GMAC podcast. We hope you'll join us each week for all things GMAC, from interviews with current and former student athletes to headlines and highlights from around the league. Find the Talkin' GMAC podcast on the Great Midwest Digital Network or wherever you get your podcasts.
Welcome back to the Ashland University Football Signing Day Live 2025 edition. I'm Cade Cracas, now joined alongside quarterback Cameron Blair. Cam, thanks for sitting down with me. When you take a look at this year's signing day, obviously being a current player is one thing, but being a recruit's another. When you take a look at this quarterback class coming in, how exciting is it?
It was very exciting. I know we got a handful of guys coming in. One guy that I got to be able to meet on a recruit night was the quarterback from St. Ed's, Tommy. I'm excited for him to come in, him be able to learn underneath some guys. I think he's going to be able to come in and push us as well and compete for a spot right away. And that's always good for our room to be able to push each other.
Yeah, when signing day obviously every year presents a new opportunity for recruits. And what advice would you be able to give to quarterbacks out there?
Yeah, I think especially coming here, you got to be ready to be swamped with information. It's going to come in. You have to know everything everyone is doing at all times. You have a receiver come in, he's going to learn the receivers right away. Running backs learn running backs right away. We have to know what everybody's going to do. You need to come in being ready to be, drowning in information in your first.
Exactly, and that must be such a hard thing for some freshmen, obviously, to come in and try to adapt to early, going from high school to college athletics. It certainly is a big leap. And for you, obviously, having been through that, what are you going to try to do on the mentorship side of things to make sure these quarterbacks don't sink and instead swim?
Yeah, it's very key for quarterbacks, I believe, coming in here when you were young to just learn one thing at a time. You get a whole playbook and you try and memorize the whole thing in a week. Start on one thing, start on the run game, start on the pass game, start on something simple and be able to expand from that because you're not going to know everything so quickly. And you just got to trust the process that you're eventually going to know everything.
And we've seen, too, in the past, recruits who come in as quarterbacks might transition to other positions and whatnot. How do you think that this class of offensive players and quarterbacks included is going to bring a lot of dynamics?
I know our quarterback room right now is a little small. My guys, we graduated, Trevor, so we're losing some people. But we're bringing in a couple really good arms that are going to be able to help us to be able to throw receivers, help us get all the receivers that we're bringing in work that they need to have done to learn.
And I think the big thing, too, interesting thing at least about the quarterback position is there's only one on the field at a time. It's not like you've got a bunch of wide receivers out there. So how do you integrate those new quarterbacks into the team and get them not necessarily game-like situations, but opportunities to show what they're worth?
With the recruiting class we bring in, we always bring in a very large recruiting class, which helps the young guys because they can have their own session of team when the older guys are doing their team. Sometimes we'll have 3 sessions of team going on, just getting them real close-to-game situations you can have without being.
And when you look at the process for building chemistry with these quarterbacks and the teammates, and obviously that level of competition early is something you have to break past, but what do you think is the best way that you build that chemistry early?
The meeting time. Really just think the meeting time. We're always together. The quarterback room, we're meeting all the time because of the amount of information we have to know. So being able to meet together all the time, being around each other all the time, we're a close group in that room. Even though there is only one on the field, we're all always with each other and competing, but also being friends off the field.
Yeah, and when you talk about being friends off the field, I think an interesting storyline that just got brought up to me by head coach Doug Geiser is Jack Talkington and you live across the road from one another, and obviously weren't in the same recruiting class, but just that aspect of knowing someone who comes and plays for AU. I mean, how special are opportunities like that?
Yeah, I know. I actually hosted Jack when he was a recruit on his recruit night, so I was very excited. I knew his family, I knew him, and I was excited to show him the town because I knew his personality, and I knew he would find this place a good fit for him.
And two, with that being a good fit is something that often high school students are looking for at the college levels, is finding a place that feels like home. What made Ashland a home to you?
It's the players. I mean, you come on your overnight visit. Mine was a little different because of COVID, so I really didn't get the overnight, but I was still with them for the whole night. You meet the guys, you meet the players. You have to decide as a recruit if these are the players you want to be around, for your college career. So I think that really is what sold it for me.
And for you, obviously, too, diving into this spring, a little bit on you. I mean, what are your goals for this spring and heading into next year?
I'm excited to compete. Go out and compete with the room, go out and compete with all my teammates. I got I got a bunch of friends coming back, a bunch of older guys coming back with me that, didn't know if they were going to be able to come back. Kent Joseph didn't think he was going to come back this year. Ended up having an injury, now he's coming back. I'm excited to go out and compete and against the defense every day, compete against my own guys. That's how we're trying to.
For sure, Camel. I appreciate you sitting down with me.
Absolutely. Thank you.
When we return, we will continue on with today's Ashland University Football Signing Day Live 2025 edition. We've got just a few segments remaining. Reminder not to go anywhere until this one's all said and done, right here on the Great Midwest Digital Network. Welcome back to the Ashland University Football Signing Day Live 2025 edition. I'm Cade Cracas, now joined alongside Associate Head Coach Jim Cordell. Coach, thanks for joining me.
Thanks, Cade.
It's great to have you. And first and foremost, how's signing day been so far for you?
Well, it's been great. I got a ring that kind of way outsizes my Super Bowl ring, so very
Oh my
happy
gosh.
to get a little Tuffy action going there.
There you go. Actually, I said first and foremost there, but before we dive into the actual questions too, how does it being a Super Bowl champion? How does that help the recruiting process?
Oh, it definitely does a little bit, right? When when you're recruiting linemen in particular, they look up to you and trust that you're going to help them in their career.
And how do you play a big role in evaluating and
Yeah, we Coach Geiser's got a very thorough process and guidelines and things that we're looking for. So I definitely follow his lead on that.
in terms of specifics, or what guys are you excited to see come in?
Yeah, well, again, we're always building depth on the O line, and sometimes everybody's story is a little bit different, right? You've got a guy like Trevor Whitney that it's love at first sight. Coach Nikolai sees him in the spring. He comes to big man camp, game day visit. He's ready to commit, but then that final visit after the season, he's all in. Family's buying gear in the bookstore, so. And then you've got guys that pop up late, have great senior seasons. So we've got guys like that in this class as well. You've got guys that I recruited Mitch's older brother AJ George. So Mitchell George, good one in this class. But some of these guys that again, just building depth in the line room, good to have.
Something I asked to the rest of the coaching staff is, how do you balance that fine line of players that are ready to come in and contribute from day one, or others that you might have to develop over time? How do you kind of find a balance there?
It's always going to be hard as a lineman because physical development is just something that is necessary for that position. So fortunately, and these guys know, hey, we've got guys returning, and to get into the two deep is going to be competitive. I've got some good depth this spring, finally, coming from my first spring 2 years ago. So there's guys that are freshmen, sophomore, that want to keep people behind them. So, they know that, but they're excited to come in and compete.
And how are you preparing to kind of integrate them into your coaching?
Fortunately, a lot of them came to camp. They came to a workout visit, and I've spent time with them and got to know them. So they're ready and they're excited for summer, where that our summer program's phenomenal, and they do spend a lot of time with us getting ready for camp.
And when you look at the competition side of things, I was able to talk to Ethan Enders earlier. He talked about how no matter what, your starting position is only starting for the time that you are starting that game. After that, it's anyone else who can take your position. And how do you look to the freshmen to come in and challenge from day one?
Yeah, we're always going to play the best five, and sometimes six with a big guy at a tight end spot, and then you need the depth. So I'm just gonna get them ready. Again, my goal is to help them become the best player they can become, and if they're in the top five, they're on the field.
Yeah, when you look at the lineman side of things, I mean, what do you think from your coaching style makes those linemen so successful, and what are you trying to portray to them early in their career?
Yeah, we focus on obviously there's an attitude and effort that is required in the O-line room. And if you are playing tough physical football, you're gonna have a good shot at success. So that's a requirement, and we try to, in the off season, everything that we're doing. So that's a mandatory.
And outside the lineman side of things, when you take a look at the rest of this, what are you expecting from them coming in, from both the action that they provide on the field, but then the actions that they provide off the field?
Yeah, I mean, guys, at the end of the day, a lot of the guys are excited to be here. Some of these guys it's Jake Ulenek I've known since he was a little kid, when his dad and I were at Ohio State together, and so some of these guys that they trust us coming in. They're ready to go to work, and they're definitely excited to be Ashland.
And something, too, that might be able to give a little bit more of a resounding effect onto those watching and those high schoolers that have chosen to come to Ashland. I mean, you, as Super Bowl champion, someone who played in the NFL, I mean, you decided to come back to Ashland.
Yeah, I mean, this is, as Coach Rose says all the time, this is our Ohio State. This is where we coach and work as hard as the coaches at Ohio State. This is a phenomenal place. There's a lot of, from the top down, president, AD, and then we have a great support staff from the boosters. Obviously, Don Graham and the Gridiron Club is phenomenal. So that helps. That helps. But yeah, we put as much into this as anybody in the country at any level.
And when you look at these players coming in too, I mean, how do you guys pitch these things to them so that they understand that hey, I came from this height of being in the NFL, and I want to come to a place like Ashland. How do you get those high schoolers to understand just the effect that Ashland can have on them?
Yeah, I think sometimes they don't know what they don't know. But we really do try to run this as much as a D1 program as much as possible. Give them as much support as we can. Yeah, Ohio State has bigger staff, some of that stuff. But we try to prepare them just as if they were at an Ohio State. So those guys in the summer when they get here, it's great, and they buy in and get to work.
And for those guys coming in, I mean, you're looking at these incoming freshmen. What are you expecting from them on the first day they arrive?
I think they'll be a little bit surprised, because I do think the one thing that you tell them in recruiting, and you tell them, and they come to game day visits, and sometimes they still don't realize how good our starters are, and how far and how much work they're going to have to put in to get out there on the varsity field for us.
Well, Coach, I appreciate you sitting down here with me today.
Thank you.
When we return, we will wrap up today's show with head coach Doug Geiser. A reminder not to go anywhere as we wrap up this year's Ashland University Football Signing Day Live 2025 edition right here on the Great Midwest Digital Network.
Budget, save, invest. A plan to help you make smart retirement choices today. Your future self will thank you.
This ad has been provided by Donald M. Graham and Associates, where our dedicated team will help you meet life's complex financial challenges. Call today to schedule your visit at 1-800-322-6116. Securities and advisory services are offered through Commonwealth Financial Network, member FINRA SIPC.
Welcome back to the Ashland University Football Signing Day Live 2025 edition. I'm Cade, Cracas, back alongside head coach Doug Geiser of the Ashland University Football team. And coach, we're at the finish line here. We've done it. Yeah. We've gotten towards the end. And so before we wrap up today's show, there's a couple things that I'd like to cover. First and foremost is something that Dusty Sloan mentioned a couple segments back, and that's the legacies side of things. I mean, you've got a couple in this year's class.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of what makes Ashland. Through the years, we've had a lot of return business. players or sons of uncles, aunts, whatever the case might be. In this year's class, lucky to have legacy. Scott Sauter's son, Tyler, wanted to stay in Ashland, come to the Eagles and be a great defensive back, like his father was a great look at, Scott was here before I got here, coach, but Juan Harvey was definitely. I can still think back to 2007 when him and Jamon Javy and John Schroeder and that three-headed monster we had back. Very dynamic competition between them. And now, you think about it, Juan's brother Chris played here as well, may rest in peace. And now the Juan's son DJ, Juan coming here, kind of a combination of those. So, there's special things that happen when you have legacy. We've got many on the team now, and I'm excited to.
And something I feel like we never covered too, even on the Doug Geiser show in the past 2 years that we've done it, is you're not just the head coach, but you also oversee the fullbacks and tight ends, something that I always seem to forget about. And so, Coach, when you take a look at those two position groups specifically in terms of this year's signing day classes, I mean, what are we looking like at those positions?
I'm excited as a position coach now, not as a head coach. I'm excited. And, we're very old school. Now the trend in football seems to have H-back, tight ends and fullbacks. Well, we're old school enough. I'm a firm believer that it's two different job descriptions. Well, you have tight ends and you have fullbacks. Well, I'm extremely blessed this year. As head coach, maybe I pulled some strings and we got three really good players. Drexel McAmis from Field near Mogador, high school tailback. He's a big high school tailback at 6'1", 260, 5. He rushed for 1,700 yards. So very skilled fullback coming in, very physical, very good with the ball. You look at the two tight ends we have. We continue to grow at that position. Blake Lindsley, stolen out of the backyard of Grand Valley and Ferris, Rockford High School, great storied producer, Michigan. Tremendous player. Can line up in line, can line up as a receiver, line up, off the ball. Then you supplement that with a tremendous player, Avon, state champion this year, Ty Beerbaum. Along the same lines as Blake is, 6'4", almost 6'5". He's 260 now. Still flex out. You can still line them up in line. So we're excited for those players. We think they're hybrid players that can help us be a little different teams we face. It's a little different prep. Makes us who we are.
And you've talked about all these players and these positions targeted and the ability to not necessarily steal players, but get them to kind of look more at Ashland than other schools and even have these guys return. I mean, how do you guys as a coaching staff find ways just to keep on bringing guys in that are going to continue to raise that bar, that level of standard that Ashland has every year?
Well, the first and foremost, Ashland sells itself. Tremendous academic. Talked a couple segments ago about their and football's a hard game. And there's a lot of preparation. There's a grind that goes through preparation. You want to be able to go somewhere where you can have the success and cash in. And our tradition shows that if you come here, chances are you're going to have success. So that's always a great selling point in itself right there. I know a couple segments ago, people were talking about people make dusty. That's true as well. We have a lot of good people, a lot of good players that are good cultures. Not based on me. That's based on the guys that came before me. The Owens, your Keller, Fred Martinelli, so on and so forth. They established that. And it's great to be a place where you can continue that. It's already been built. So there's a lot of things to sell with Ashland. It's just a matter, you got to get out and build those relationships to tell the story. Once they tell the story, it really intrigues a lot of people.
And we've talked too about the history and the people that have come before. And I think a big thing too is that when you look to these signees and these incoming freshmen, you want them to come out here and potentially be the next Adam Shaheen, be the next person to hoist this trophy for Ashland. How do you make sure as a head coach that these guys who come in are being given the groundwork and the frame to do those things?
The first and foremost, you have the facilities so having the NIST facility allows us to train in the winter, work on your speed and work on your agility, and the players can grow on their own out of the elements. Okay. The other thing is you need to hire a good staff. I got a good staff. They're good teachers. They're good men. They are invested in their players' lives. They have a good plan on how to develop because they've done it. A lot of experience there. They've done it before. So those two things together, put that with good players and players that are driven, hungry, competitive, and want to compete at the highest level. Very great dynamic, and seeing the benefits of that.
And Coach, to kind of wrap up today's signing day, this 2025 edition, kind of what are your final thoughts and what are your final words you've got out there for the high schoolers that are coming in?
I would say this: enjoy the day. Earn the right. Signing day is very, very, very special. Realize this: you will have a workout in your email by Monday, and the preparation for your time to come in here to Ashland will start on Monday. So enjoy the day. You get a couple days to enjoy the pomp and circumstance of signing, and the work begins. Get those goals we've set for us.
Well, Coach, I just want to say a big thank you for taking time out of your very busy day to join me here today.
I appreciate you putting this together, and let's do this again next year.
I think we should. I think we definitely should. Maybe shoot for 3 hours like we talked about.
That we could do that.
I might fall asleep.
I'll train extra for that. So
I was about to say I might fall asleep in that third hour, but I'll try not to. But I just want to say a big thank you to the Ashland University football program and everyone who's been able to come out and join us for the show. Everyone who put their time and their resources into making this happen, including the Ashland University Athletic Department, Dusty Sloan, Caleb Crowley, and many others who have helped make this a reality, including as well the Ashland University Journalism and Digital Media Department, who were kind enough to help give us some of the equipment that we needed to pull this thing off. But once again, I want to say a big thank you to everyone who tuned in, and a big thank you to Coach Geiser for your willingness to always be on camera as well.
It's been great working with you. Thank you.
That is all that we've got for this year's Ashland University Football Signing Day Live 2025 edition. I'm Cade Cracas signing off one last time. Thanks so much again right here on the Great Midwest Digital Network.